Hi, I'm Ian Metherall. I started school in short pants in 1967 and left in long pants in 1972 in year 12. And I was a member of Country House, which was rather applicable, being a country boy. Teachers and mentors, we were very fortunate back then. We had a really good relationship with a lot of teachers. Squizzy Taylor was one who I met up with on a tour a few years ago, but Graham Perrott and I have been long-time friends, and we'd often chew the fat about life in the boarding house into the early hours of the morning. A piece of advice to the next generation: be humble. Tall poppy syndrome in business and is very much alive, and I learned very early that if you really want to be successful, be humble. On my business card, although I own the business and it's a global business, it's just my name, there's no title. When I go to clients, I drive an ordinary car. So my advice is be humble. When I left school in 1972, I went back to the farm. Then I attended Marcus Oldham College in Geelong. And then when I left Marcus Oldham College, I went into business. So I've never actually worked for anybody in my life. I started importing some steel from England, Sheffield. There was a correction in the currency, so my good friend in the UK sent me to Brazil. And back in those days, business in Brazil was basically unknown. So 45 years ago, I was importing from Brazil, and then I was passing through Argentina in 2002 and came across some new grain storage technology there as a result of the economic crash, and I was in the right place at the right time, and I was fortunate to be able to take that technology around the world and basically travel the world with my own business. I've lost a fortune because I trusted the wrong people that didn't return the trust. Fortunately, I made more than I lost to educate my family and look after them. The project in Sudan was interesting. I was approached by a gentleman there to do a project, and we took the project on, and essentially it was to store 300,000 tonnes of grain in the desert. So I sent my project manager over, and he rang up and said, "We have a problem." I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Well, it's still desert. Nothing's been done to prepare the site." Anyway, cut a long story short, we got all the contractors in, prepared the site, shipped in machinery from all around the world, and within 6 months we turned the desert from sandhills into a storage site of 250 acres, and we had securely stored 300,000 tonnes of wheat from 5 ships, including a shipload from Australia. We have been turning out the wheat that has been stored there now for 12 years, and we're feeding the population in Sudan with that wheat. That's been quite an amazing personal experience. You know, we took the technology to India and Egypt and other countries. We were lucky to work with private people who made it happen. To this day, we remain partners in a business in Dubai. I'm an avid collector of art. I was very fortunate in life to put 2 significant collections together. One was with the Holden cars. I had in the family the first Holden ever sold, which belonged to my wife's grandfather, Essington Lewis, who was the most powerful man in Australian history. The government came to him and said, "Well, we need to make a car, but it's the war, we can't get steel." And he said, "You make the car, I'll get you the steel." So they said, General Motors and the government said, "Well, we'd like to give you the first Holden built." Essington Lewis said, "I don't take gifts, I like to buy it." So The night before the Holden car went onto the market to the public, his car was delivered to him personally to his house in Toorak. I discovered the car in a farm shed down at Tallarook where his farm was. I remember seeing the first Holden, so-called first Holden ever built at Dandenong Show with a fellow boarder, Peter Smith. And I said, wow, you know, I was sort of a bit overawed by this car. So I did some research and I picked up a magazine at the airport, an article written by Don Loeffler, who's a famous Holden historian, and I got in touch with him because this car had a plate on it, the tag body number 215, and the model was also known as FX215, and I thought this is very strange. Professor Geoffrey Blaney wrote the autobiography on Easington Lewis, and he's made mention about the car, and there was sort of talk within the family. So I did the research, and I worked with Don Loeffler and some other very generous historians. Yeah, it was the first Holden ever sold. Anyway, I restored it and paid for the restoration and got it back to pristine condition. And then the opportunity came up to buy the first Holden ever built, which is, to me, is not a car, it's a work of art because it was handmade in America. So I wanted to put the two cars together. That was my dream, and I was able to do that. I was very lucky that I sent a fax to the National Museum in Canberra, and within basically 3 minutes of me sending the fax I had a phone call, and the next morning they were at the farm and they climbed underneath the old girl, and this guy came out 30 seconds later smiling and said, this is number one. So then I had the difficult decision to make that I didn't want the collection broken up. And to get the funds to buy Holden number one, the government had to make a special donation to the museum. Peter Costello did that when he was treasurer. And it was always my intention to loan the Easington Lewis car. Didn't want to sell it, considered it to be a family heirloom. So I made the fateful decision to donate it free of charge. The two cars left for Canberra, had a big open day up there to unveil them. So I'm very proud, and the condition was that the cars went there and that they weren't to be separated. I just wanted to take them out of the private world where they're a commodity, where they're bought and sold and people make money, and so that all went well. My wife's great-great-grandmother was Lady Janet Clark. Sir William Clark was her, of course, husband, and his statue is in Spring Street today. And their city house was Clevedon, opposite the Melbourne Cricket Club, and their country house was Rupert's Wood in Sunbury. And they went to England and came back to the English cricket team in 1882 on the ship, and Sir William invited them up to Rupert's Wood for Christmas, and this photograph here is the only known photograph of them being there. The Melbourne Cricket Club and Lords both said that we know there's written history to say they were there, but there's no photographic evidence. I was doing some research from some auctions and came across this collection. I knew exactly what it was and purchased for a lot of money this whole collection just for the one photograph. So if you look here, this is the English cricket team in amongst the crowd at Rupert's Wood, Christmas Eve 1882. This is Sir William Clark, and then you've got all the players. And that is now Catholic College at Sunbury, Salesian College, and that hill and the cricket ground is still there. That is a very historic photo. There was a lady called Florence Morphy, and Florence was born in Beechworth. So Florence, her father was the police superintendent, and he died, and she became basically a pauper, and they came to Melbourne, and she went to work for Lady Janet as music teacher at Rupert's Wood and competent. Ivo Bly, in the photo, who was the English captain, fell in love with Florence. Ivo was, of course, a lord, and Florence was a penniless music teacher. Ivo really wanted to develop the relationship, and this bale here you see is the unburnt bale that didn't go into the urn. So Ivo took that back to England, and he had it turned into that lovely letter opener, and continued corresponding with Lady Janet Clark, and basically said, I really love Florence, I'm a lord and she's basically a peasant, society says we can't marry. So Lady Janet wrote back and said, basically, tell them to get stuffed, come to Rupert's Wood and you'll get married at Rupert's Wood. So Ivo came out, married Florence Morphy at Rupert's Wood. Florence went back, became Lady Darnley and a competent of Queen Victoria. The little urn was their symbol of love, and when Ivo passed away she donated the urn to Lords. That's how it all came about. The family actually had Ned Kelly's armour at the house as well, and they discarded the armour down to the basement because he was a criminal. Stephen Fry, the English author and actor, was the immediate past president of Lords, and got in contact with him, and he was just amazed at the history, and as a direct result of Stephen Fry, the bale has been granted permission from the Australian government to be loaned to Lords for 4 years, and we will be taking it to Lords in January, where it will be on display beside the urn at Lords Cricket Ground Museum. So this little trophy is known as the Barlow Trophy. And Barlow actually won the match for the English, and on the poem on the side of the urn it says, seeing Barlow and Bates with the urn, and the rest coming home with the urn, is actually written on the side of the urn. This was presented to Barlow after the match. They took donations up at the cricket field and bought the trophy with W.G. Grace on top and presented that to Barlow, and that is the same match as the bale. You start with one car, you end up with another car. You start with the bale, you end up with the companion trophy. So it's not just about collecting different items, it's putting items of significance together. That's the big achievement. My wish for the collections are just for future generations to understand the history and enjoy it. That's what it's all about. We're only custodians for a short time, but hopefully the history will go on forever.